afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast State of the Balance with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Master of Propaganda and master of a lot of other things. And the State of the Balance here for October 2017 is certainly, well, not looking too different from the last, several months since, the balance patch, stopped happening, at least again for the time being, until, they get enough forces for Age of Empires before they can sort of begin spreading out the resources elsewhere. So, essentially, for the Brits, not really as much jam there. It's still sort of large, get a lot of sections, try to steamroll your opponent until you can get tanks, at which point you try to steamroll them harder, maybe call in a mortar emplacement. So in that regard, there's not really much that's happening there with the Brits. It's overall still the same issue with just the sections are a bit too tough, and, can carry around double Bren guns, which is basically double light machine guns, to remove them from the grenadiers, but never quite got around to doing it with the British infantry section. So, if we were to suggest something being changed, there's still been a slightly reduced received accuracy bonuses, and, reduce the amount of light machine guns they can carry to 1. Or at least put them much more on the level of other infantry, but still, they'd be pretty good, just, not, blop-tastically good, and of course just fix the brace for the mortar emplacement and we're good to go. Maybe some of the other nerfs they were planning there. So that sort of largely covers the Brits. But overall, you still have to expect the same, go for a lot of section, in which case, bring up machine guns to try to suppress them, hit them hard, just try to deny them as much fuel as possible so they can't attack as fast as possible with tanks, and that begins steamrolling you harder. Basically, beyond that, there's not much to say there about the current state of the Brits. As for the Americans, again, largely the same. More players are going for the captain into the steward. Some are actually going for pack house, which is quite nasty. But otherwise, well, less of a drop-off, I suppose, small drop-off in armor company, I guess. But overall, it's still largely the same as well with the Americans. Get a lot of riflemen, get a bunch of BARs, try to rush for a Sherman, then get a bunch of BARs, steamroll your opponent from there. It's not exactly a lot has changed there either. They do have some strategy and tactics compared to, say, the Brits, but it's largely the same thing over and over, rinse and repeat, if you will, with the Americans, because what they have is really, really effective without necessarily having to put in the same amount of effort your actual opponents have to in several cases. So, there's also some going for 50 calibers, lieutenant. That's based on the two larger divergencies. Some go for armor company, others go for heavy cavalry and maybe Pershing. But, rifle company and these here is certainly, gained a lot of traction as of late. As the EZ is also pretty damn good. So, there are some things to keep in mind there. But, try to deal with the riflemen, sort of push ahead there. Using some machine guns and maybe some mortars. Try not to lose yourself in sort of pointless engagement versus the Americans. And, if your Germans get Stuks to wreck their tanks, then pull up with other armor as examples of how you can counter that. Moving on to the Soviets, again, mostly penal troop. Well, that's for the American nerfs. I'd probably do the same as with the Brits, limit the amount of BARs they can walk around with, to 1, because it's almost as effective as an LMG-42, except it can fire on the move and then get 2 of those. That's usually in the, rather extreme department for the very same reason, they nerf the grenadiers double light machine guns, so why should the Allies have, something similar, except it can fire on the move? So, either they fix that, or they allow the grenadiers to carry 2 light machine guns, or they buff the LMG-42, so it has more impact in one way or the other. Something kinda has to give there, considering the German grenadiers are much more easier to wipe. So, something, has to give out there. As for the Soviets, penal troopers, conscripts, T-34s, a lot of them, M4C spam, but overall M4C spam has fallen off there thanks to the nerfs there, so it's more just a lot of T-34s and 6s. Some are going for IS-2s, some are going for the IS-152, but primarily, a lot of T-34s, because it's a very effective strategy, usually combined with whatever you want to combine it with. There are some slight variations here and there, and overall the Soviets do have a lot of options, but generally the penal troops are the most efficient one in a lot of cases. Though again, there is an expansion into support and company plays and other options. So it's not like they're completely monolithic like the Brits. There are options there. Even if you watch, not playing a cheesy man, you can easily do so with the Soviets, do quite well. You just of course have to be a bit more aware of things. As for the Soviets, penal troopers are probably nerf, but beyond that, there's not much as that really touch with them. Besides the penal troopers really at the moment. I think they're sort of the core problem, maybe the disc heavy machine gun as well. But beyond that, I think they're sort of in a reasonably good state. As for the Oberkommand West, similarly to all the other factions, not really huge series of changes, a lot of full grenadiers into something else, usually in a Panzer IV or a Command Panther, and then take it from there into King Tiger usually. It's not exactly the most, imaginary zero strategies. I'd probably look into nerfing the Volkskandidaten, but slightly countering that by slightly buffing the Sturmpanier so the veterans get up better, because that's one of the things holding them back. I'd probably look into slightly improving the MG34 and the flak half track so they're a bit more useful. I'd also nerf the looks a bit. I'd probably give it slightly less health or make it a bit more expensive, just to somehow counter and make it a bit more vulnerable, because currently the looks is a bit too much all around heavily efficient, which is definitely not good. And I probably look into some slight improvements in there, but beyond that I'm not entirely sure about what else I'd do with them. But overall, just nerf some of the things, improve some of the other things that generally tend to see less usage, since they know some of the things that I've caused in the Volkskandidaten heavy strategies, because in most cases, you're going to get punished if you don't go for a lot of Volkskandidaten unless you're really, really, really good. So that's sort of the issue there. It's the Oberkommandowest to an extent. You are funneled into it if you're not, the best of the best of the very best, which is not exactly the most encouraging sort of design process. So that's definitely something, that should be looked into. And of course, smoke for the light infantry guns, that really should have been there from the start. More smoke for the Oberkommandowest in general. Maybe some regular smoke grenades for the Obersoldaten instead of this, or give them to the Sturmpaniers. Just more options for smoke for the Oberkommandowest, so you actually have some options for covering up your flanks and the likes. And probably also look into the artillery ability for the Panzer Commander from the Elite Armored Doctrine, so that one's a bit more useful as well, whereas currently it's kind of junk. Finally, moving on to the Wehrmacht, you got series of strategies. There's Tier 2 rush, Tier 3 rush, just, more regular push there. I mean, overall, the Wehrmacht's sort of seeing a lot of variety. Again, they're usually the one because, they don't have anything, super bust they can just heavy rely on, so they have to push for a lot of different angles. Generally, again, they can also very quickly be pushed back on the defensive and thusly struggle. So in that sense, they can very quickly swing back and forth with the Wehrmacht, and if they do one wrong thing, it's very quickly pushed back. But overall, the Wehrmacht, against the Wehrmacht, I mean, there's still things you can look forward to. The most sort of common trait, though, particularly if you're going heavy on infantry, is the flame for a half, because that's probably one of the Wehrmacht's best options for dealing with it. Though a couple of 2-2s can also do the trick without having to invest as much munitions. Panzer Grenadiers, of course, seeing some usage depending on the player, but Grenadier heavy builds are also the most popular thing. Into Panzer IVs, maybe some Stuks depending on the series of armors. There are, of course, as always, some who go for Panthers, and if they can execute it well, it can be quite devastating. Doctrinally, usually the ones with the Tiger tanks, Lightning War still sort of the de facto more popular one. Air support, Tiger tanks, relief infantry has a lot of options there. Ostermold's recently used it for mechanized assault, not quite seeing as much use as it has in its glory days. So there's not much else there. Overall for the Wehrmacht, I'd still probably look into just improving their Tier 4, making a bit more of the heavy Panzer Corps, maybe getting extra to some kind of, veteran infantry unit that can sort of help carry over there, because one of the Wehrmacht's big issues is they all run around with just 4-man squads. They're so easily wiped, and if they do fall behind there, it can very quickly turn into a mire where they can't really come back from. So I'd still recommend some kind of elite infantry unit there, maybe just Obersoldaten or something like that, and some slight improvements to the Panthers so it becomes a bit more useful. I'd probably look into giving some slightly better AoE on its main gun, so that way help deal a bit more efficiently versus infantry, because the Panther's just, medium tank. The whole, well, it's a specialised anti-tank, tank, hunter, tank, anti-tank, tank. It's just, make-believe. It's a tank. It's more premium medium tank for Tier 4, which no other faction has. Just make it good and get on with it, Relic. Just make it good. I mean, that's really just what it needs to be. Good, sort of decently good in all situations. Then, of course, slightly better versus armor, because it costs more than any other medium tank to get your fucking hands on in the first place, while managing 4-man squads, which again is, one of those things which a lot of people tend to forget is actually a huge drawback when you're playing as the Wehrmacht, because there are so many things you can easily just wipe your units in a single hit. Like that, just a couple of mortar hits from anything, good lord, I just lost a 4-man infantry squad, which you should also pay more for than the allies have to pay for theirs. I mean, usually those kind of drawbacks, have payoffs, and so far they've removed most of those payoffs for the Wehrmacht, which is sort of one of the problems, sort of design-wise, of the faction. It's supposed to compensate with something like it did in Companies 1. You had the Purchasable Veterancy, you had the Knights Cross Holders, and you had overall better tanks. The problem is most of those have been removed by now, so to really get the Wehrmacht in sort of fun fashion, they need to add some of those elements back to the Wehrmacht. Really, and that's the one thing I'm doing for them, to actually give something out, for the late games of the Wehrmacht, actually has some proper teeth there. Because that's sort of the thing that is a bit lacking there. So there you go, that's sort of my opinion on the subject matter of the state of the balance. Again, overall, no big changes. Most players are still playing largely the same. And there's still, of course, a lot of things to do with some tweaking and some changes here and there. So, hopefully there'll be some news there, maybe around the end of the year, I don't know, about, something happening there, but obviously as long as Age of Empires 4 is the main priority, and Relic are probably still struggling to find people to work on that, companies just, not going to be the highest priority. But we can hope, we can dream, that's going to happen eventually. That's certainly, my big dream. Of course, it's not horribly bad, like, I was going to say earlier in the year, but, it could still be better. It could be a lot better. So, there's still work to go, still room to go. But I'll certainly keep you updated if they make any really big swings on the metagame happen, obviously. But so far, there's some smaller ones, but nothing that sort of bears any worth pointing out. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this State of the Balance. Hopefully it gave you some ideas as to what to prepare for and what to fight against. This is Imperial Dane signing off, and see you all for another video. And of course, a big thanks to all my patron supporters, without which this would not have been possible. And if you'd like to support me and do what I do on a daily basis, consider pledging or donating on PayPal. Links are in the video description. Cheers, everybody.